Did we, if you lost stuff from Refuel, did we do that? You didn't do that, right? You did not announce, okay. We do have a bunch of lost and found stuff. It's in the concession stand that we need to get rid of. If it is not collected within one more week, it will all be donated to the Goodwill. So, yeah, enjoy. So, has anybody noticed they're missing? We found the blue sleeping bag, right? That's okay. We know who that is. The rest is just random stuff. So, anybody not have a pair of purple Crocs right now? Lavender? They're lavender Crocs. If you want some, they're whose? So you know who they are? Okay. Can you give them to her? Yeah, grab them today. Is that one of your friends that came with you? Or is that somebody else? Okay. Who's what? White Fox hoodie? We got a White Fox hoodie going once. Going. That's what, all right. So the stuff's not going to be going to the Goodwill. I will be auctioning off any leftovers. So if you want to, is White Fox like a cool brand for girls right now? It is. Oh. Christmas presents? All right. If you happen to get a White Fox hoodie. All right. Yeah, and there's something else. There was I don't know, the rest of it. Oh, yeah, there is no Exodus this Wednesday. There's no Exodus this Wednesday. It's spring break. You guys never show up when it's spring break. We've tried it before. And like 10 of you show up for it. Now, and you did talk about Equip tonight. They did mention that. And you got the address. We put that up there. Okay. So, good to go. All right. Sorry. We're just running down here. Hey, if you have been talking to us about baptism, and if you came to that meeting, or even if you were not able to be at the meeting last Sunday, but baptism is something you're like, man, I know that was something I talked about at Refuel. I did not get to that parent meeting, or maybe you haven't fully done any next steps yet, but you were up there this morning and you're watching those girls and you're like, I know I need to do that. Like if they are taking the courage to take that step out, that is something I need to do. Please talk with your leader about baptism, or just say, what do I need to do? We have sheets of paper and stuff that we'll go walk through you guys with if you need to still talk to your parents, but don't put that off, because there was 15 of you guys that said, I want to move forward in baptism next. So don't allow days after that to kind of scare you away from making that, choice in your life. We are doing the series, man, we are short on time, so I'll try to rush through some of this stuff. We started a series last Sunday called Give and Take. In that, what is our main thing we were talking about? Does anybody remember from last Sunday? Yes. All right, it's easier to take than it is forgive, and we were talking spiritually about one topic, forgiveness. All right, forgiveness, because it is much easier. How many of you guys had to ask or tell somebody you were sorry this past week? How many? Okay, keep those hands up. Now, how many of you guys I didn't, but I probably should have said I'm sorry to somebody? All right. Now, how many of you guys had to forgive anybody for something they did that was stupid, they cut you off while you were driving? Maybe they didn't even ask. All right. You had to forgive yourself? Awesome, because that's what we're talking about today, Martine. Martine is one step ahead, as always. Way to go. All right. Good. So, all right, don't go too far. Here's the deal. We are talking about, the need to, when you know you mess up, and you catch yourself in that moment of messing up. And so I want you to think about sometime, and just, you don't have to give the total example, but if you guys ever said something and it came out so rude or so stupid or so mean, but you didn't mean for it to, but after you said it, you were like, oh my gosh, why did I just say that? Does that ever happen to anybody? Okay, thank you. Of course, Martine, thank you. Sometimes we make a joke that we thought was going to be funny, or it just kind of pushed the line a little bit too much, and you made a rude comment, and you're like, oh, dang it. And you follow up with I was just joking, but it did not go that well, and it just kind of ruined the whole thing. And after it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a dirtbag. I was joking because I was looking through this. Literally just happened to me. Was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was walking with Colin and Joel, and there was Pastor Matt was setting up for a life group, like little display in there. And I walked in to get some food, but there was only like 4 donuts, and he cut them into like 5 pieces. And then I thought it was a hot dog. And so he came walking in. He's like, "Get out of here, guys. Don't eat my food." And I was like, "You cut up 3 donuts and you have a hot dog, man. I guess you're not planning for a lot of people here." And I was just like teasing him, joking. But as I left, and I was like, oh no, because I know Matt had been setting up for days, like trying to get all this ready. I was like, oh, I am a terrible person. Like, I am a jerk. And I know Matt well enough where he was laughing, but I know he was like, "I hate you." Like inside, I could feel like he wouldn't really hate me because Pastor Matt Evans is like the nicest guy in the world. But as I left, I was like, oh man, I'm a jerk. And I was walking and I'm like laughing. But you know when you say something mean and you're laughing, but you know like I shouldn't be laughing at this right now. And I looked over and I told Colin, I was like, I'm a bully. Like that was mean. And I just felt like, oh, that was a jerk thing to say. And it really wasn't that big of a deal. But as soon as I saw Matt, I'm like, Matt, I was just like, no, don't even talk to me, Roush. And I had to grab him and hug him. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm a terrible person. And he's like, you are. You're the worst. And I was like, no, man, I'm sorry. Don't say that. But those are like little things, you can kind of do. And everybody here has crossed that. Okay, Martine. Everybody here has crossed that line with a friend or with somebody or with a parent or a teacher. And you're like, oh, I thought we were joking. And like you went too far and they're like, I'm still your parent or I'm still a teacher. You're like, oops, sorry. And like you kind of feel really bad about it. And so it can be something funny sometimes like that. But sometimes the mistakes we make can like build up. Because we've all had that moment of like, oh, I'm a jerk. Oh, that was dumb. Oh, that was mean. Why did I think that? Why did I say that? But sometimes it can be something bigger in your life that maybe you did. And you're like, oh, that's not what I did not mean for this to happen. It could have been, we're talking about the dating thing, it could have been, and some of you guys, if you haven't had this, it's either been you or you know somebody where you're like, I was just talking to that girl, but she was dating a friend, but then we started liking each other, and you're like, I didn't mean for that to happen, and you feel like really bad about that, and it can go both ways, the guy, the girl or the guy, and you're like, we didn't mean for this, and you just feel awful, and you're like, I'm like, why would I do that? It could have been something you did to your parents, like where you just kind of lost it, and you said something, and you're like, that was mean, but you don't know how to like come back from it, and you just feel really bad for it. But it can also not just be stuff that you said. It can be actions you do. You're like, why did I do that? And sometimes it's things that maybe no one even knows about. It might be some sin in your life that you are struggling with, you're dealing with. Things that other people don't even know you're struggling or dealing with. It from anywhere from just, how you view yourself, how you treat yourself, or how you talk to yourself, or how maybe you look in the mirror and how you see yourself and you just get really down on yourself. It can be sins that maybe no one else knows about, like things you're viewing or watching or looking at online. And you just keep struggling and thinking, why? And you start to believe these things about yourself of like, I'm not worth this. It can be stuff other people have maybe said to you, and we have a hard time like overcoming and forgiving ourselves. So last week we talked about the struggle of forgiving other people and maybe even forgiving them when they don't deserve it. But today I want us just to take a few minutes of talking about this idea of what happens when it's yourself that you're feeling really down on. It's yourself that you're really struggling with. It's yourself that you're telling yourself these lies of like, I don't deserve this, or this isn't like, or maybe it's like, I deserve that. I deserve to be treated that way. I deserve to be viewed that way because you see yourself as something less because maybe some things you've done in your life and you're like, I'm the worst. And you kind of view yourself in this negative light sometimes because of maybe some choices or things you've done, how you've treated a friend or somebody else, or maybe sins that no one knows about. And you start to, get really down on yourself. And how does that affect? And so the same way not forgiving other people can affect your relationships between you and people, but also between you and God. When we have that same incorrect view of ourselves and that same view of I deserve what I'm getting, and we can't forgive ourselves, that can interfere with our relationship with God as well. Because if we follow a God of grace, of what Jesus did for us, but yet we refuse and we have a hard time accepting that because of how we view ourselves, then it will always interfere with what in our relationship with Jesus. Last week we talked about when Paul was writing to the church, and he was saying, this is how I need you to treat other people. And he talked about forgiveness a lot, and I want to look at a few verses here and just see how does that apply to me. In Colossians 3:13, and I'm pretty sure the scripture will be on the screen here, he says, I want you to make allowance for each other's faults, all right? So he's talking about, like, show some grace for one another. The people around you are not going to be perfect. Your husband, your wives, they're not going to be perfect. Your friends are not going to be perfect. Your siblings are not going to be perfect. Make allowance for each other. Show a little bit of grace here. And forgive anyone who offends you. But then he reminds them, he says, remember, the Lord has forgave you, and so you must forgive others. And so I think sometimes for some people, it's easier to forgive other people. It's easier to be like, okay, I know you didn't mean that. Okay, I know that. It's easier to forgive other people sometimes than it is to forgive ourselves. It's easier sometimes to treat other people with a little bit of grace rather than to receive that grace for ourselves. And so he reminds them, the Lord has forgave you. You don't have to carry that junk. There might be some consequences to some of your decisions, but you don't have to carry around that idea of, I don't deserve this. Paul was really big on reminding believers in that. In the book of Romans, he does the same thing when he's talking to mainly a Jewish crowd. And this is important. I'll share this here in a second. But to a Jewish crowd who really kind of always dealt with, you do bad stuff, this is why this happens to you. This, you deserve this. You do this, you deserve this. And so he reminds them in Romans chapter 5, verse 8, and he says, God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners. And so we may have a hard time forgiving ourselves. We may sit there and go, well, this is what I deserve. And I'm going through this stuff, and I don't deserve anything better. And I have these things going on in my life because this is, I chose this, and I'm just a bad person. And we can start to believe those things about ourselves. But Paul reminds, while we were still sinners. Hey, buddy. I was just telling him the other day about me making jokes about your life group room, about the donuts and the hot dog. And and now I came in, and then when I saw you in the hallway, though, I tried to apologize to you and hug you. I did. It's a ganache. It's not a hot dog. I tried to hug you, and I told you I'm sorry. Did I not come? I said I'm sorry. And you oh, so many times. All right. I just told him I was a terrible person. I felt I was bullying you. I was a bad person. God forgive. You're still working on it, but all right. Sorry. Good timing. But here's the deal. He says, while we're still sinners. And so Paul's reminding them, you were already forgiven even when you messed up. So if we understand, like God forgave us, and while we're still in our sin, we have been forgiven. Then this idea of carrying around our guilt and our shame and allowing that to make us feel like, well, I'm less than. I'm not like those people. I don't deserve that. And we can do that a lot in the church. I see that a lot where younger students or other people will look at someone that's actively serving in the church and they'll go, well, I'm not like those guys. I'm not like those kids. I'm not like the ones that do the welcome or the announcements. And sometimes it's this really weird, unfair way we judge ourselves compared to other people. Well, I'm not like that person that gets to sing in the worship team. I'm not as good, and they start to believe things about themselves. And what we start to do is, and this is why we so often feel like it's this scale, We feel like, well, if I did these bad things over here, then I'm down here. And so the only way to make myself feel better is maybe I should just do more things. I should go to church more, and I should do this stuff, and I should do these things. And even with the baptism, I've talked to so many students from time where I need to get baptized. And I'm like, I just baptized you a year ago. And you're like, yeah, but I've really messed up this past year, and it was not a good school year. So I need to get baptized again. As if Jesus is well, you don't count for a while now because you messed up. And once you get baptized, then Jesus will love me again. And we have this idea of like, you do good or you do bad, and there's this scale. So if you do a bunch of bad stuff, you got to do a bunch of good stuff so that Jesus will like you and you're not a bad person. And Jesus is like, no, that's never been the case. Like, you are loved. You are forgiven. And so when we carry this stuff around, he's like, you're carrying it unnecessarily around. You don't need to view yourself like that. Now, are you going to feel bad if you do something bad? Yes. Like, you should. Like, that's a normal response. If you didn't feel bad after doing something bad, you're psycho. Like, you should feel something. I mean, you shouldn't be like, oh, like, I'm a believer. I just, punched that little kid over there. Don't feel bad at all. Saved by grace. Of course not, all right? You're going to have feelings. You're going to have, like, that normal thing. But the difference is I messed up. I made a mistake. But God, please forgive me for that mistake. I know that I'm loved and I'm forgiven, and I don't want this to come in the way. And maybe you need to apologize to somebody. But then it's also coming to God and going, Lord, I did this. I need to own this. And I don't want to carry that guilt and that shame and feel like I can't come to you anymore. I don't want to feel like I deserve something less because of that. And if we're not careful, that can start to build up. I joke and I tell you guys I sub sometimes, and one of the most heartbreaking conversations I overheard was a girl talking about her physical relationship with a boy, and another girl joking with her and going, like, I thought you were dating so-and-so. And she's like, no, I broke up with him 2 weeks ago. She's like, but you were dating so-and-so that. She's like, no, that was another week ago. And then she was talking about it, and I'm like, stop talking about this stuff so loud, first of all. Because I'm like, it's heartbreaking. And then she's talking about this, and she's like, well, and her friend was kind of like, what are you doing, though? Like, why? Why are you doing that? And the girl replied, well, I already messed up with my first boyfriend. And so I don't even care anymore. And she got, like, really serious about it. And it was kind of heartbreaking. She's like, so I've already messed up, so who cares? What's it even matter anymore? And you could just hear the value in her voice drop right down. Because that's the seriousness of when we do something and we realize, well, this is just who I am now. This is what I deserve. This is why so many people, when they don't understand this, when they sin or they make a mistake or they mess up, this is why they run from the church instead of running to the very God that says you're loved. Because we feel like, well, I messed up, so I shouldn't really be at church right now. I've made too many mistakes to be at church. That's like backwards world. That should be the one place we're running to, saying, God, I've made so many mistakes. But we can start to feel so down on ourselves. And this is why it's so important for that Christ reminds us, you were already in your sin when you were loved and forgiven. And so if you don't allow that stuff in your heart between you and God to be forgiven, it will only affect your relationship between him and you, but also your relationships and how you view yourselves with your friends, with other people. It's kind of like that idea of like, well, I messed up here, so I guess this is just what it is. Like if you're on a diet and you're like, oh, I ate 4 chips. Might as well eat 5 bags of chips because I already messed up. And you start to view yourself like that. Who cares? This is who I am. And this is a complete wrong mindset. Well, I sinned once. I'm just a terrible sinner. And Jesus says, you were already forgiven in that. And so we need to learn to look at ourselves and see ourselves the way Christ sees us. Because there is no, well, I'm trash. There is no, I don't deserve this. There is no, oh, I deserve the worst. There is none of that when it comes to the way Jesus sees you. And so what we need to do, when you guys go to your small groups, I just want you to talk about this idea of, one, like you need to acknowledge if there's stuff in there, the way you view yourself, if it's in a negative light. And we need to give that to God. We need to own that. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do for me when I pray is actually speaking out my sin when I'm talking to God. Because I'm so, embarrassed of that feeling. Or maybe I'm just like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I act this way? Why did I allow pride to get in the way of this? Why did I speak to my kid or my wife that way? Or why wasn't I there for a friend? And just to be able to say that out loud to God, sometimes that makes you feel worse at first. But we got to be honest about it and speak it out to God and say, God, I don't want to hold on to this. Forgive me, Lord. and giving that stuff over to God and allowing God to forgive you for those things so that you don't hold that onto yourself anymore. Just allow that to take place. And then what happens then is when we start finding ourselves, we are no longer buying that idea and that lie that we are less than, and that, like, I'm so broken, this is what I deserve. We can allow the truth of God's healing. Instead of going, well, I'm broken, I'm a sinner, like, I'm just a mess, this is my life, no one cares about me, I'm a loser, and we start believing this stuff about us. Instead, we can allow God to begin healing that in our life. That relationship begins healing, and then when you start to see yourself and experience, like, I see myself how God sees me now, that does affect your relationships. It affects your friendships. It affects your relationship within your family. It affects your dating relationships. It affects all of those things when we start to allow God to heal the things that we hold on to about ourselves and allow Him to speak truth into your life. So allowing us to forgive ourselves is a huge thing, and allowing, like, receiving what God has for us. So then we can give that forgiveness to other people. And so as you guys go to your groups here, just want you to talk about it, because it's going to be different. I feel like different age groups is going to have different ideas of what it's like to hold on. It's funny, it's kind of sad. Like, the older you get, the more lies you start to believe about yourself. The more ways you start to judge yourself to other people. And so some of you younger people, you're like, I don't know, I'm the best. And you have this great, that's amazing. For our older students, sometimes it's hard to really go, man, that's tough sometimes. So talk about that, be honest in your small groups, and talk about how having a negative view of yourself has ever affected the relationships around you and why this is so important. All right, so guys, go ahead. Make sure you don't leave any trash behind and get to your small groups. Please go, like, straight to your small groups quickly, because we're kind of already behind on time here.